Hey guys, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome. I want to thank you so much for joining me tonight on the late one in review, where we look at the top news or the best news, and of course, join with my esteemed panel today, which is the 8th of the 4th, 8th of April. Can you believe that we're in April already? Moving on way down all the way to December. Believe it or not, end of the financial year already, or start of the financial year, as some would say. But anyway, very interesting week so far. Very interesting topics so far. You can see where the EMA and the UK is talking about the COVID vaccines and AstraZeneca. The somewhat rethinking, well, not even rethinking, but the fact that blood clot is now deemed to be one of the side effects, which is now official. But yet at the same time, the benefit outweighs the risk, which is said. So we're going to look at that. Young man Richard, who passed away. Sad story, but we'll touch on that as well. And the race report, more fallout as well. And ladies and gentlemen, we'll see how it goes. But without further ado, let me just introduce my panelists, which you all know, and they're household names all over the UK. These are people who are awesome, fantastic, and great. And I start off with saying good evening, good evening, good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Good evening.
Well, the lady didn't answer. I think she wanted lady. Good evening, lady.
Good evening, one and all.
Oh, she wants it special by herself, you know. How are you, David?
I'm good. How are you all? Hope you had a good week. It's a bit strange this week because you know 4-day week and 4-day week the week previous. Feel a bit more tired, I think, with a 4-day week.
Yeah, and Anthony, it's 4-day week. Or are you always working?
Well, I mean, as a retired man, it's every week is a good week. But I do manage to get a few things done here and there. So, but yes, it has felt a bit strange given that it was, the Easter break. But I think most people would have enjoyed it.
I want to thank also say good evening to those on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Anthony, I want to come back to you. You keep using this word retired. You're the second guy I know who is retired, and they're been so busy working since they got retired. Are you retired or are you just living life now? What is it? Tell us what it is like. Explain to us while we young is.
Well, I think there's two sides to this story, Selborne, with regard to retirement. People like myself who have reached an age where they can take retirement. So I took retirement at the good old age of 55 a couple of years ago. So the reason why I've continued doing some activity, I'll be honest, is because when you are in a position where you can take early retirement, one thing that suddenly goes away is your identity in terms of who you are to the outside world again. So, for example, you know, in previous roles, I would be, you know, a particular person. I'd be a project director, I'd be a this or a that. And then suddenly I found myself being just me. And I wanted to find a way to reinvent myself after finishing sort of normal 9-to-5 work. And by doing that, I looked at interests that I had and I found a passion elsewhere. And I've been able to sort of spend my time doing things where I'm a bit more passionate about.
Yeah. And ladies and gentlemen, if you ever heard about the book and sometimes you hear me speak about it, Think It, Plan It, Do It Now. That's the book by Anthony Francis. And it's as simple as that. You think it, you start to plan it, you do it now. That's it. That's it, right? Isn't it, Anthony? Isn't that it? No long drag out thing.
It's no long thing. It's as you said on the tin. You know, you've got the idea, you think, you then put together a plan, you then put together an implementation, and then you take action to actually make it happen. You don't procrastinate. You don't spend the whole year having a meeting to discuss a meeting. You actually take action to get the thing done.
Well, that's interesting here, you know, because people tend to always spend lots of time having meetings upon meetings. Keisha, earlier you showed us saying that you want to get a microphone. We don't want to ask David. David has all these equipments there. Anthony showed off his microphone earlier, and Anthony said to you, Keisha, just you thought it, just get it.
Absolutely, and that's the next step now.
So, did you press on the Instagram? Did you press on the Amazon button?
No, I'll have to look around first to see what type I'd want.
Okay, Anthony. So she's still planning it then.
No, yeah. I've already decided that I want one. It's just that I have to determine which one now because you just can't get any type. You know what I mean? You don't want something
Keisha
ugly.
is
You want
just
a very
wanting
fancy.
you to purchase it, Silbo. That's all it is. She's waiting for you to purchase and click the button. That's what she's trying to say. She's just being very diplomatic about it. I'll see it for you, Keisha. Silbo, buy the microphone.
I mean, I'm not going to refuse a gift. So
I get the message, and I tell you what, Tisha, I tell you this today, and you're on my record. As long as you get one which is of a reasonable price, and that is subjective, come back to me, and as David said, I'll contribute to it.
You're welcome.
wow, I'm quite pleased.
He didn't
All right.
say contribute. He didn't say pay. He said contribute.
No. Financially, I'm a lawyer, and I know Anthony's actually picking me there because he knows that I can come back around and say, well, I said contribute by thought, contribute by the type. Now I'm talking financially, okay, for the record. But listen, guys, it's been a very interesting week. This week, I was at home doing work, and I turned on the TV and I was watching the EMA, which is the European body that monitors and deal with the whole health and the vaccine, and they made some declaration that blood clot is part of the side effects of AstraZeneca. And it has created a sort of twirl spin because a lot of people have been talking about this and it's been pushed aside. And one of the terms which has been used a lot, and I saw it came out right away, the benefit outweighs the risk. The benefit outweighs the risk. I'm not for or against anything now. I'm just being a conduit of information on this show. David, what's your take on this whole development? Because you always start off by telling us what's the latest.
Well, before we get serious about the matter, I've just got to say, Silbo, you've got to be careful about how you say blood clot, okay? Being a Jamaican.
Anthony, you got to maybe explain that to Anthony a bit.
You don't need to go there, Selborne.
You don't have to explain to anybody. We got that.
I think most people get it, right? So that's the unserious point out of the way.
Okay.
The serious point here, obviously, the past couple of days have been quite turbulent in regards to the AstraZeneca vaccine. And what we know is that blood clots have been reported in the population of patients who have had the AstraZeneca vaccine, but we don't know to what extent the vaccine itself is associated with blood clots, because there are so many patients who have had this particular vaccine and not had a blood clot in itself. So the take-home message here is that the jury is still out. The evidence isn't quite clear. But as Silbon alluded to a little bit earlier, it's about a risk-benefit analysis. And what the government, as well as the health advisors, so the JCVI, have elected to do, even though there isn't a clear link between the AstraZeneca vaccine and these blood clots, is to look at the risk, analyze the risk, and make a judgment call that those persons under the age of 30 should not receive the AstraZeneca vaccine. And I think in this regard, it's as simple as this. If you look at the people who have a clear risk of having an adverse outcome, what I mean about adverse is that an outcome that's not very good in regards to picking up COVID and passing away from it. It tends to be those people who are of an older age. We've already talked about the comorbidities that are associated with COVID-19. And so obesity, certain ethnic groups for lots of different reasons seem to be more inclined to have an adverse outcome. If you have asthma, those sort of things have already been associated with poor outcomes. And so when you look at the risk-benefit analysis, you've got to think about, well, actually, not taking the vaccine or taking that particular vaccine is not in your best interest. So you must take the vaccine if you're at risk. Now, the choice here boils down to those people outside of the at-risk groups. Should we be taking the vaccine? And for our point of view, as clinicians, we feel that people should be taking the vaccine to reduce the chance that you succumb to an adverse outcome, even if you don't have as many risk factors as being attributed to COVID-19. And that's for a couple of reasons. Number one, it protects yourself. Number two, it will protect other people. Number three, it will protect the NHS. You would have heard the line, save the NHS, protect lives. Okay, so you're trying to reduce the chance of a burden on the NHS, but more importantly, you're trying to reduce the chance that people will have COVID-19 and go on to have a really bad outcome. So the vaccine not only protects yourself from picking up the COVID-19, but even if you do pick it up, you tend not to have as bad an outcome. And what I'm trying to say here is that the AstraZeneca vaccine has not, at this moment in time, been associated or been clinically proven to have caused these clots. What it has is a link potentially to the clots in certain individuals, and it's our understanding that develops over time. So in the 30s, there are going to be other vaccines that are going to be employed for them, even though we know that the AstraZeneca vaccine has definitely at this moment in time caused a particular issue with regards to blood clots. So we're working forward, we're getting more information as time goes by. As time goes by, we also get positive information. So we know that the ability for us to spread COVID-19, having had a vaccine, is limited, more so than not having had the vaccine. The other good bit of news is, right at the very start, our trajectory was to sort of go down the line of herd immunity. And so for people that don't understand herd immunity, what that means is if you get a certain proportion of the population who have immunity to a particular problem, so in this instance it's COVID-19, you're actually then protecting other people from picking up and protecting other people from picking up the virus. So we're getting to that target now, which is around the mid 70% of people who have had COVID-19 and or had the vaccination to achieve that herd immunity, so that it reduces the transmissibility of COVID-19 amongst the population. And that date is a key date. It's a key date because it's a date that I can go back to the gym, and that's the 12th of April. By that point in time, we should have achieved that 70% of herd immunity. Now, what that does mean, that does mean that we don't change the course. It doesn't mean everybody relaxes and says, okay, I've had my first vaccine, or I'm not, or, you know, I was in line to have a vaccine, therefore I'm going to stop. It does not mean that at all. What it means is that it's another level, another barrier, another thing that we need to achieve in order to reduce the chance that people have an adverse outcome with regards to COVID-19. So it's positivity that comes with time, it's positivity that comes with people being afforded a vaccine, and I think it's a great way of trying to navigate things. So we still have to wear masks, we still have to do the things that, you know, social distancing for now, or physical distancing for now, but it's a great achievement.
I'll go on to Anthony before I say anything in regards to that. Anthony, what's your take on I know you're a champion of the AstraZeneca, or generally, I mean, as we move forward.
Yeah, well, I'm a big advocate of people who are able to take the vaccine for the reasons that David has outlined. Clearly, we are now seeing the benefits of the vaccine success over the last couple of months. We've seen with the figures. So I think those facts speak for themselves. You know, in terms of the number of deaths, hospitalizations, we're seeing a massive reduction. And I think that must be, you know, that credit, that must be given to the AstraZeneca vaccine success. And I think it would be foolish if we were to suddenly see that the number of incidences that have been reported with the blood clots makes people suddenly take a reaction where they say, actually, you know what, I was due a second vaccine jab, or I was due to have my first and I'm now going to miss it because of the points David has outlined. Clearly, you want to avoid catching it in the first place, but equally you want to avoid passing it on if you already have the virus. So I think for me, I would, you know, I've already taken the AstraZeneca vaccine, so I'm publicly stating that anyway. I mean, I'm due my second one, and it hasn't put any fear in me, because with all medicines, there are risks. And I think what the AstraZeneca vaccine has done, it's made the government and it's made us all more aware of the sort of risk versus benefits. But equally, I think in a way, we've maybe become slightly conditioned to be thinking that the vaccine is a cure-all and there is no side effects whatsoever. And I think one of the things that Dr. Van Tam did the other day when he sort of read the instructions on the aspirin, the aspirin guidelines. If people read the aspirin guidelines, it does say on there that one of the side effects of taking aspirin is that it could potentially give you a blood clot. So there are risks with anything, and I think that, you know, the numbers that we've been told, one in a million. David will correct me, but the numbers are so small that, and also don't forget, they have also mentioned that the the actual type of blood clot is a very rare one. And, you know, when you consider 20 million people who have had this vaccine to date, and there have been 20 incidences of which there have been, I think it's, correct me if I'm wrong, David, I think it's about 7 to 9 people who have died. That in itself is staggering. 20 million. People should not forget 20 million is a massive number. So for me, I would just simply concur with what David said. I'm an advocate for the vaccine or the vaccine program in general, whether or not it be AstraZeneca or the Pfizer. And I think if you are able to, or if you're down to get one, you should continue to do so, subject to your own personal preference.
Before Kima come in, one of the things that I do note that Keisha, yeah, sorry, Keisha. For Keisha come, one of the things that I do note is what you just said, that the comparison with aspirin, and then I heard the news talking about lightning, and the news talking about car crash, and it is like they are. I know they are trying to justify to say the benefit outweighs the risk. But many people are saying it's like in war, they call it, what's the thing when you go to war and somebody dies, they call it what's the term they call it, David? Or
casualty?
No, what's that?
Casualty?
No, not casualty. They call it there's a term they call it.
Oh,
collateral damage. Collateral. And this is the thing which is disturbing people at the same time. But Keisha, I'm gonna play a video. Keisha, you go on. You say what your thoughts are, please.
Well, I think the only thing that concerns me is that, you know, we probably should have known this from the outset.
No,
You know, I think that there's a possibility that you could get blood clots. I mean, because people have a right, I personally believe, that people should have a right to determine and what is in their best interest, or their own, to make the decision based on, you know, what could possibly happen to them. So all these people who may have taken the vaccine and now suffered with this blood clot, and I understand that somebody died the other day because of that. Surely that's supposed to be a concern to one another. It's not so much. I mean, I take the point about benefit outweighs the risk, but at the end of the day, if I'm going to offer myself, as you rightly say, as collateral damage or as a potential casualty, at least I should know from the outset before I take the vaccine. Unfortunately, that wasn't, you know, we didn't have that evidence, but yet we were actually encouraged, and we're still being encouraged to take the vaccine. Personally, it kind of changed things for me in a different way, because I was quite keen on actually taking the vaccine. I'm looking forward to taking the vaccine, but the possibility that you're now possibly, you know, you don't know if what could possibly happen to you. At least you talk about taking, you know, the tablets. What was the painkiller? Anthony. But at the end of the day, I can actually go into the shop, go over the counter pharmacy and ask for one. And actually, I know the risk that associated to this. I did not know the risk from a few months ago when we were talking about taking the vaccine, and I was all keen on taking the vaccine, that there's a possible causal link to,
but I can just quickly cut in there, Keisha, just on a short point. One is, you know, when you're developing any medicine, that you cannot in hindsight be able to mitigate for every single cause or reaction that somebody somewhere in the world may have as a result of taking it. The second one is, which even as a person who, you know, in my past life as a project professional, I can start a program knowing that I need to go from A to Z, and I know the steps that I might have to take, and I might plan everything perfectly. But, you know, who knows what the path might be? I might come across something that actually causes me to go slightly off direction, and I have to do a corrective measure to get me back on track. This is what's happened. I mean, it's no different to if somebody's flying in a plane and suddenly the pilot comes across turbulence or a problem, and the engine perhaps hasn't come across that type of response before, and it has to suddenly do a beeline to make a difference. I think the thing here is that the vaccine has been developed in rapid time. We know that. We clearly know that the protocols that have gone through, all the usual measures, it's gone through those. What we didn't know was what the reaction would be on real people, based on the fact that now we've had 20 million who have received the dose. And now we have had that, they're beginning to see further evidence of maybe possible cause that this vaccine may be involved. And again, I stress the word possible because it hasn't been concurred yet. So the fact that you're now saying, oh, they should have told us. Well, how can they tell you? I mean, this is the thing which is ridiculous. They can't tell you everything.
So, Anthony, so what you're actually saying then is, by virtue of the fact that they have done the trials or inject a lot of people so far, the side effect which is coming true is a part of the developing process.
Well, of course it is. I mean, it's.
But
it's
then how could that be? That's supposed to be returning during the trial. That's the whole point of a trial.
But they did the trial.
They did the trial, exactly. And yes, if they did the trial, people like myself who would say, okay, you've been through the whole process of doing the trial. Clearly, I'm now confident I could take that risk because at the end of the day, you've done the trial. But if you're telling me that, well, as far as I'm concerned, then we have to question the trial then. Because you have to. Because if now you're trying to say that suddenly.
Let me be the gatekeeper and the peacekeeper. In regards to trials, you have to know what you're looking for. It's impossible for you to highlight a problem on your car without telling the person you're taking the car in for, the mechanic, what the problem you're having. So it's like giving your car to a mechanic and saying, find that problem. Okay? You need to know what problems you're looking for beforehand. All right. Now, a mechanic might be able to screen for the first 200 things that make sense to look for in a car. But if you don't tell them what the problem is, then they won't find that problem. And you'll go out with a car after your service and your car will have an accident and it will be a problem. And you'll say, well, actually, I found what the problem is. I know what the problem is. Now let's find out if other cars have this particular problem. And that's when you start your process of being able to pick apart the issue. So I take your point. A trial was run. The trial would look for certain things in regards to a response. But because this event is so rare, you need to have a certain number of people present before you can dictate that this is a particular issue. So let me talk to you about how rare this event is. How many people do you think across globally have taken the AstraZeneca vaccine? Just to have a guess. Not just in the UK, but globally.
40 million.
More.
70 million.
More.
100 million.
More.
Can I ask a friend?
You keep calling. So
200 million.
Yes. So according to the BBC website, 200 million. How many people have had an adverse outcome in the world with AstraZeneca?
We don't know.
Who's died?
We don't know.
Well, reported.
We do know, because I know the one last week died, I think.
Well, we don't know everybody.
No, but reported deaths because of this.
10.
Yeah. How many people? 10. Starting ground. Keep going. Higher.
20.
19 people. So you're looking at 19 people out of 200 million. That is a rare event. Okay, very rare event. And I think the key issue here is if we are saying we need to know about these particular adverse outcomes, it means that you have to run a trial essentially to get 1 million and odd people, sorry, more than 1 million people to have that one adverse outcome before you can report it as a particular issue. And then you've got to say, well, okay, that's one person. Now I've got to have 20 people present with death. I'm talking about here. Now, in terms of numbers of people who've had the very rare event, it's 79 people that's been reported out of the same figure of 200 million. It's impossible to run a trial, a global trial with 200 million people. Would you agree? A trial. So the trial was much smaller, and you are now able to go backwards and say, okay, now we know this is potentially an issue. How many people have had this reported? And you pick out data. That's how it rolls out. So I'm really sad to say that we can't look at prospectively, we can't look outwardly and say, okay, these are the problems that we expect to have, and every single one of them is highlighted, because it's not. Any medication that goes out there, what you have is a yellow card. And a yellow card is associated with particular problems that may well develop because of the medication that are unknown at the time of rolling out that particular medication. And so over time, you collect a battery of information over time. And that gives you the foresight to say, okay, well, actually, now we know aspirin is linked with clots, or aspirin is linked with X or Y or Z, or whatever it is that you're saying it's linked to. And that's the same with every other medication that's out there. So very simplistically, because this is such a rare event, you cannot plan for it. Okay? We don't expect you to drive a car and for it to explode, but a car will explode. Okay? Doesn't mean that every car out there is going to explode, if that makes sense. Yeah. But if you found that more cars are exploding, then it becomes an issue. And then you say, okay, well, this particular brand is a problem. We need to now look into it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Does make sense. And now
Yeah.
that it's unfortunately we know more about the possibility of getting blood clots. I think you would probably appreciate then if people now saying, oh well, I don't want to be taking that particular vaccine.
Well, that's the thing here. We're talking about possibilities and probabilities rather than causal. So if I know that something's going to cause something, then I completely see the thought process behind it. So if I know that I put my hand on a fire, it's going to get burnt, more often than not. But if I know that I'm going to put my hand near a fire and it may get burnt, but it may not get burnt, and it may well be associated with it, but it may not. That's where we're at this moment in time. We're not at a point where we can say definitely this is a problem. This is definitely a problem linked to the vaccine, and that's the issue. The articulation of the issue at hand is the problem. We've not really been able to articulate in a manner that's truly understandable by the population at large.
All right,
I think if 19 people died as a consequence of taking the vaccine due to blood clot, I think that is, sorry?
Out of 200 million.
Well, I think the fact is we're losing life. 19 is not, it's a big figure to me. And because I mean, you can't just dismiss somebody, a human being. At the end of the day, I go back to my original point, which of course, now people actually are finding themselves in a position where they have to make this choice, significant choice, not just based on, the information that the government has been giving us. The fact is, there is a possibility that there's a causal link. And so therefore, if someone says, I no longer want to take this particular vaccine, I should now have options. Surely that should be an alternative. That should be considered.
All right.
Listen, where I was going with this argument.
Let me come in here because there's something which I need to read, and it is here, and it says the Philippines and Australia are the latest countries to limit the use of the Oxford AstraZeneca jab in younger people. It follows the UK regulators' announcement that under 30s in the UK will receive an alternate over very rare blood clots. And as I mentioned earlier, I was watching the news, and I've got this clip here which I just want to play because it says something.
Death from COVID far outweighs the fatal side effects from the vaccine. Health experts are keen to maintain public confidence as the threat of a third wave of COVID looms, and to keep the risks in proportion. The UK regulator revealed today that around one person developed a potentially fatal blood clot for every 250,000 people vaccinated. The risk of being hit by lightning in the UK is 1 in 1.2 million. The number of people killed on the UK's roads in 2019 was 1,752. That's more than 1 in every 37,000 people. But the risk of dying after contracting COVID is far higher. The Oxford jab remains.
Let me come in there and bring you guys back into that bit there. What I found somewhat disingenuous, I must say. I understand the benefits outweigh the risk, but
exactly,
the collateral damage thing which is coming out, which Keisha alluded to, whereby just because one person or 19 person died, it is not deemed to be significant. I understand what they're saying, but I find it concerning to a certain extent. And now they're actually using all of these analogies in comparison to lightning, car crash, aspirin, and they bring out all of it. It has actually made people a bit questioning the whole thing, because there's not voices which are being allowed, which were speaking before about these concerns. Am I correct? Those voices are not there.
Well, I'm always for people to discuss and have articulation and comment. That's why we have this forum.
I don't know.
It's more than just a COVID forum, but it's good to have discussions. Yeah. So let me just make this very simple in terms of forget about the lightning, forget about the car. Let's compare like for like.
Yes.
What we're talking about is 19 people.
Yes.
200 million people have had the vaccine. 19 people. 19 people is a loss of life. I completely appreciate that. I'm in a business where I want to keep people alive. 19 people is a loss of life.
Yeah.
Okay. How many people have had COVID-19 globally in the world reported?
Yeah, I mean, I take your point, but that's
No,
not where we're going with the
no,
argument.
it
The
is.
point is, I
It's a
take your
big point.
point.
No, no,
It's
no,
outnumbered. Okay, clearly, what
no.
the COVID have done is actually a lot of people have died because of COVID, and if you compare it, I take your point on that.
No, but I'm asking a question. How many people have had COVID? How many people have got COVID?
Oh, millions and millions of people.
132 million reported cases.
Right.
How many people have died globally through COVID?
Oh gosh, millions. I can't remember how many million.
I got the figure there.
2.8 million people reportedly died of COVID. 2.8
Right.
million. So if we're going to concentrate on 19 people, which we should also concentrate on the 2.8 million people who have also died.
No, I think that's not fair. And
Right? Tell me why.
I don't think it's fair. I don't think it's fair. Okay. Now, and the reason why I'm sorry. The reason why I don't think it's fair is that we have actually put our trust. I personally have put my trust in these scientists, and all these doctors who gathered together and decided to actually come up with this vaccine, like what I would describe as an emergency vaccine, right? Then you told me that it was safe, and I believed you, right? And I'm actually getting ready to take my vaccination when it comes around. Very happy. Then I hear this news about, there's a potential that you can actually, there's a causal link to blood clot. And I'm thinking, as far as I'm concerned, David, is if I go out to the shop to buy a prescription or get a drug, I should actually have a choice then to determine whether I want to take it, subject to the risk that is associated to it. Unfortunately, we were not told about all the risks, and I don't think it's fair. I just don't think it's fair to be just told part information and have the whole world saying geared up to take it, when you know that one in how many million of people, that one person who actually believed in what the scientists say or what the government had said could die because you didn't bother to tell us the full facts.
No, but I've just explained the fact that that's not the case. We couldn't look at the risk for the cases of people who would have unfortunately lost their life through taking a vaccine. And the second thing is, I don't think you've kind of answered my question. I asked the question was, why is it not an issue that 2.8 million people have unfortunately lost their life through not having access to the vaccine potentially, but lost their life through COVID-19? But it is an issue for 19 people to have passed away after having the vaccination without a positive correlation or link directly being attributed to the vaccine itself. That was my question, because it is fair to make an assumption between the two, because they're both of them are opposite poles. The vaccine's there to try and protect you. COVID-19 there is trying to, unfortunately, take people's lives. And so that's why I'm asking the question. 2.8 million people have unfortunately lost their life through COVID-19.
Okay, because there's a percentage of those 19 people, if they had actually had a very stiff-necked approach, they probably say, I'm not taking the vaccine, and they probably could have been alive today.
And how would
and we probably would have been condemning them, people like myself, initially a week ago before I hear about all this. I'll be saying, oh well, that's not really good, listen to trust the scientists and all that. And I could have said to you, that's not right. You should be taking the vaccine because that's what they told us.
Well, it is very clear. It is very clear that this is something, and it's resonating across the nation, resonating even in Jamaica as well, because Jamaica is using AstraZeneca from India. Some people are saying it's not the same one, and a guy put it up recently by saying, hang on a second, if I buy my Mercedes-Benz or my BMW from another country, are you trying to say it's a different Mercedes-Benz or BMW? So people are actually genuinely, David, and I'm sure, David, you'll appreciate that as well. Amidst the war,
completely get it, but I just got to make the point that I don't know. My math isn't really good at 25 minutes to 10. I don't know how many times 19 goes into 2.8 million, but it's a lot. It's more, it's more than half, obviously. And so that's the point I'm trying to make here. It's a lot of people who have lost their lives through this condition. The protection of a vaccine is so grand that it's a global effort to try and get us out of this particular predicament. Now, I think I completely agree with you. Choice is the key, okay? I'm not going to argue against that. You've got the choice. Everybody's got the choice. But to really pick apart this 19 figure for number of deaths, 79 people for people who have unfortunately picked this, had these cases, 79. But 19 people have lost their life. I'm not even going to say that that's something that we shouldn't hold dear. It definitely should. But we've also, to a tremendous degree, we've got to look at the 2.8 million. I don't know how I can articulate that. That's a lot of zeros after the 2.8. That's a big number. I'm going to wrap up, but I think we've just got to really make that point clear.
Yeah.
A lot of people have lost their life.
Yes. Let's bring in Anthony.
Point about the 19. I think Diane Murray Samuels, you've got to really look at the data. 79 people have had the association potentially of the blood clots. 19 people have died. So if you want to point the figures out, then please do. I'm getting my figures from BBC.
Okay, before I bring on to Anthony to wrap up and move on from this topic, Diane Murray says it's not only 19 people, check the medical journal. So David, Claudette Stewart said, how many people have recovered from the numbers reported to have got COVID? Christopher Fenton balanced it off. The odds are ridiculously low. It's worth the risk. And said, David, stop saying it's 19. It's far more than that.
In the UK, it's 19. I'm going to keep saying it. If you want to check the figures, check the figures. 19 in the UK.
Okay, Anthony, let's move on from this one. What's your wrapping up the truth in regards?
Well, I think it's just in a wrap up. Clearly it's a personal choice. If people want to take the vaccine, they can take it. The information is becoming more available now in terms of the possible causes or side effects. So it comes down to a personal choice. I mean, I think as David has highlighted, the figures speak for themselves in regards to the possible issues that are related to it. But in terms of the probability of getting a blood clot that may cause death seems to be so low that the risk benefit means that those who are able to take it should take it. But I say it again, it's a personal decision. And if you're happy to take it, as I have done, then feel free to do so. If you're not happy taking it, then don't.
Anthony, I do respect that position there. Kima is Dian is laboring some issues there, so David and Dian will sort those out with those figures, to see who's a maths person. But the point what Anthony said is correct, and it's a position that I've taken as well, whereby a man has got to be persuaded and convicted and resolve within himself what he wants. Because I was speaking to a young lady the other day, and she said she took the vaccine. I don't know which one, and she feels different, and she's just a bit concerned. And the bit about 30 years going down, if I'm not mistaken, I understand that the 30 going down age were the group which were able to recover good to COVID. And then people are now saying, well, some forces are saying that the vaccine is now messing up these young people. Anyway, let's not go any further on that one there.
Moving swiftly on Silbon, because I'm not even happy about that, if that's what you're saying.
Well, I'm just saying, because Astro saying 30 years and down should stop taking it. Isn't that right? That's what he says.
No, I think they're not. And I think we need to... let's move to the next subject.
Yeah, I think we're better, because I'm thinking, what's happening here?
It says here, it follows the UK announcement.
Next subject, Selborne.
No. I got to say this because I'm not doing alternative facts. That the under 30s in the UK will receive an alternate over very rare blood clots. That is the AstraZeneca. That is it.
Where you get that? Where that figure come from? Where you get that source? What's your source?
It's on BBC. It's right there. It's right there. Go on BBC. It's right there. That's where I took it from.
Okay. All right, let's go to a different subject. I can't deal with that right now.
There's an
crazy.
It's not AstraZeneca who is saying that. It's the JCVI alongside the government who decided to make this action at this moment in time. AstraZeneca have not come out and said that.
No, I didn't say AstraZeneca said. I said BBC said that. But what I'm trying to say is that is what is actually being said out there, but each time that is being said, I got to put this caveat: the benefit outweighs the risk. Okay, that's what they say all the while. I'm just being a conduit of news and trying to make sure that the different voices are said. Listen, another topic I just want to bring up quickly, because time has gone on us, and it's always important when time goes on us with these topics. I believe it's very important. We're going to get it as much as possible. The race report, which was done of recent days, has been getting more flax. But at the same time, as people are getting to understand more about it, it is questioning if the criticisms are fair. A lot of the commissioners are getting a lot of flack at present, and being personally being attacked, their character, being called Uncle Tom, being called in this and that. Do you think that is fair in this 20th century? We've got black professionals, a space person, a guy named Mr. Turner Sewell, who is actually generating geniuses for young black boys, being criticized and scrutinized because they did a report that clarifies or tries to question racism and the way forward. Anthony, do you think it's fair?
Well, in order to give others an opportunity to also speak on this very quickly, I don't think it's fair. I think, first of all, people need to read the full document in order to determine what they believe are the outcomes from it, and if they agree with the recommendations that have been provided. So for me, clearly, what the report is trying to do is move the debate slightly further forward, rather than, in my opinion, sticking into this same narrative that we are institutional racist as a country within the whole of the UK, which is what I think some of the headlines are trying to actually portray. And to make a sweeping statement like that, I think you have to have the facts around each individual institution, organization, to determine if that is the case. So first and foremost, I think what the document has tried to do is to actually bring a different narrative, rather than simply going over the same old ground, which the Lammy report and the Parker report before it have done, and have been very good at actually highlighting some clear issues that need to be solved, and those recommendations should have been acted upon. And this report has actually now looked at a number of other different areas, and it's highlighted some recommendations that the government should also take into consideration amongst other recommendations from other reports. So I think to actually have people being condemned as being Uncle Toms, and being derogatory statements being made towards them by other people of color towards them, I think is disingenuous and wrong. And I think it doesn't actually serve us and make us in a good light. It makes us look slightly ignorant. And I think first and foremost, we need to read the report first, form our own opinions, and then look at the data from which it's come from, and then see if we agree with it before we actually start jumping on the bandwagon and simply just jumping on headlines and making wild statements and comments.
It's a very good point that you mentioned there, Anthony. And I'm going to bring on to Kima, because I know, Kima, you have your views. Keisha. Ladies and gentlemen, I do apologize. The reason why I say Keisha and Kima, let me just put it out there, is because Kima is her twin. And that both of them are born on the same day, even though one claimed to be a bit much older. And I keep getting mixed up all the while. So bear with me. That is why I make amends in many ways. I'm getting her the mic. Anyway, Keisha, go ahead.
Yeah, well, thank you, Silver. The reality is, a lot of people who have actually making this criticism, a lot of them actually have read the report, Anthony. People like myself have read the report. And so we're not being disingenuous to all these commissioners. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, this report is only perpetuating the government narrative. It's nothing but a PR document, as far as I'm concerned. It hasn't actually dealt with people's lived experience. One of the one point, because we could speak all day on this. The one point that we touched on earlier is institutional racism, where the commissioners have failed to actually accept it. They refuse to accept that institutional racism existed in this country, right? And their reason or rationale for it is that there is no evidence to suggest that institutional racism exists. Okay, so we don't have to go too far back, Anthony. One example is the Windrush generation scandal. Are you trying to tell me that's not institutional racism by the Home Office?
I want to come in right there, because I don't think the report was saying that there's not racism, and it wasn't saying that.
No, it didn't say that. No, it did say that. No, they're not saying that there wasn't racism. They say institutional, as in the concept of institutional racism does not exist. And it says, to be clear, so everyone knows, I'm not saying that the report did not say that racism doesn't exist. Of course, it does say that to an extent. But what the criticism is, my number one criticism, and they have quite a few actually, but the one I'm speaking on today is the concept of institutional racism. Apparently, according to this report, they have the audacity to say there is no evidence to suggest that it exists. After all these reports that we've been through, you're going to tell me, you based on your, I don't know what analysis, what evidence you receive, you're saying that there's institutional racism doesn't exist. Okay, forget about people's lived experience. But I'm just trying to say one example that's quite recent is the Windrush generation scandal.
Yes.
Right.
If I bring on David before, I have to, But is it the report was actually saying to make a blanket statement to say institutional racism is there and there? One need to look at other factors that contribute to the defect or the deficient in certain areas or certain communities. I know I'm playing around with words, maybe what people don't like because the report wasn't so very blatant to say there is institutional racism. But according to the report, it was actually wording the word institutional racism a particular way, and the guy was questioning it to say, can institutional racism be this or that, or there are other factors? David, am I making sense there? I don't know. Is it, Anthony, you can come back in as well.
Yeah, let Anthony go first.
Yeah.
Just to reply.
I'm not trying to, I'm just looking at things from different angles.
No, I think, sorry,
No, let
Anthony, you go first.
Well, look, for me, the report has tried to actually change the narrative and actually make us look slightly differently. For me, are we solely focused on institutional racism as a headline, and we're not looking at anything else that the report or other reports have had to highlight recently over the last couple of years? What is it that we want to actually have done in this country? What is it that we ourselves can also do to try and address certain things in our communities and in our own areas where we can make a difference? I think we have to also look at our own communities and see where we can actually make a difference to ourselves, as well as waiting for the government to give a one-size-fits-all comment and says A, B, or C. What this commission has tried to do is simply just to say, look, we've looked at this information, we've looked at certain data, and we've come up with these recommendations. Whether or not you like them or not, they're recommendations based on the data that they have looked into. And I think what we have to try and do as people of color, we have to look at it and say, if we don't agree with certain parts of it, fine. What can we do to make things better? We can't spend our whole time just bashing the report. What's that going to get us? Where further forward will bashing the report take us if we simply just say, I don't like the report, I don't like what it says, I'm not happy with it, I'm going to kick it into the long grass, I don't agree. Then what? Then what do you get from doing that, Keisha?
Anthony, it's not about bashing the report. The point is, if you're going to produce a report, you're going to produce it based on facts, people's lived experience, evidence, right? Now, if you want us to move forward, which of course I'm sure every Black person in this country wants to move forward, you've got to talk about and reflect the realities of what's happening in this country, people's lived experience, and one of them, a critical issue, is institutional racism. That's actually happening in our educational system, the Home Office, or the immigration system, whatever you want to call it, the prisons, the police. All it does exist.
Keisha,
and if you're going to deny it, if you're going to deny it, we as a people, and that's why unfortunately they're calling him Uncle Tom's. I don't support the derogatory. I get the point. But if you're gonna deny the fact that this thing exists, how as a people can we move forward?
Yeah, but
that's the question.
I will say very quickly, Selborne.
Yeah,
David is a doctor. My daughter is head of economics in a school. I've been the director of one of the largest organizations in the UK.
we go. That's it, ladies and gentlemen. That's talk and sip. I'm looking to see Anthony come on, and I'm looking to see David come on. And of course, all you guys got to do before you can get on the show, you got to make sure you got a drink. All right, and David, we're looking for Brett to drink. Anthony, make sure we got a drink. Let's Saturday night or so, a nice glass of wine.
Water.
There's quite a few of your guests that should go on, like Diane and Christopher, Chris, and quite a few.
What's that?
I said you have quite a few guests here tonight. They should all come on Saturday.
Yes, everybody come on this Saturday night, 10 o'clock. And so have a good one. All the best. Peace out. Remember to like and subscribe to the show. Follow Dr. David Burton. Follow Anthony Francis. Make sure you buy Think and Planet. Do it now. If you want it, I'll put the details up. Keisha Allen and as well, and Kima as well. And have a good night. And God bless you on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Peace out and bye. Bye-bye, guys.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.